What would you do if a 6-year-old girl, clutching a newborn, looked you in the eye and asked for help? Nathan Rourke, a billionaire known for his cold precision and ruthless success, never expected his entire world to shift on a freezing November evening in Central Park. But when that little girl spoke her name and the baby's, he dropped to his knees, trembling. Why did their names break him? Where had their mother been all these years? And what secrets had Nathan buried so deep, even he forgot how much they mattered? This is not just a story of unexpected fatherhood. It's a story of redemption, of survival, of music that remembers what words cannot. It's about a woman who vanished to protect her children, and a man who found more than success when he opened his door to the past. Get ready for a journey that will break your heart and then piece it back together with gentle truth and raw emotion. If this already touches something in you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. The night air was sharper than it should have been for late October. A wind crept along the narrow sidewalks of Clinton Hill, making even the brick walls shudder. Nathan Rourke tightened the collar of his wool coat and kept walking, hands in his pockets, breath of pale fog in front of him. He could have taken the car home. He could have stayed at the after-party. He could have drowned himself in another glass of bourbon at the fundraiser gala, surrounded by warm lighting, safer conversations, and people who knew how to pretend. But instead, Nathan chose the long way, on foot. Through the neighborhood where he used to live before success twisted everything into marble floors and press releases. It was almost midnight. The streets were empty, save for the flickering orange streetlights. He passed the closed deli on Ashford Avenue. The window still had the same crack from years ago. Something about that made him feel comforted, like the world hadn't entirely changed without him. That was when he heard the sound. A cry, not loud, not panicked, more like a squeaky hiccup being swallowed by the wind. He paused, looked left, looked right, and then he saw her. Beneath a tired street lamp across the street, curled up beside a bench, was a small figure, a child, wrapped in what looked like a dusty jacket, far too big for her. She sat cross-legged on the concrete, holding something bundled close to her chest. Nathan hesitated. He had no experience with kids. He didn't know the protocol, but his feet were already crossing the street. As he got closer, the girl looked up fast. Her eyes sharp, dark, and wide were alert. Not the kind of wide that came from fear, the kind that came from survival. Her whole body shifted to shield the bundle in her arms. "Don't come closer," she warned. Her voice was thin, but steady. Nathan stopped where he stood. He kept his hands visible, raised to shoulder level. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The baby in her arms let out another soft cry. "A real baby? Not a doll?" "You're freezing," Nathan said quietly. "Both of you." The girl didn't answer. "What's your name?" She blinked slowly. Her lips trembled slightly, but she kept her arms wrapped tight around the infant. "Ava," she finally said. "And this is Jonah." Nathan flinched, not visibly, but inside, something broke open. He sat down carefully on the bench, not too close, not too far. His mind raced, but his voice stayed calm. Ava and Jonah, those names, the same two names he and Elena had whispered about once, when they still believed in the idea of children, when love had a future tense. He swallowed hard, blinking against the burn behind his eyes. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "No." "Are you sure?" She nodded, but her hands gave her away. They trembled, not from fear, but from the cold and hunger she wouldn't admit. Where's your mom?" "Ava." "The hospital," she said, her eyes not meeting his. "She got sick. They said they'd take her for a little while, and your dad don't have one," she replied automatically. Nathan didn't push. "May I help?" Ava's body tensed. "You can't take Jonah," she said, fiercely now. "You can't." "I won't," Nathan assured her quickly. You shouldn't be out here. It's too cold. He could get sick." She looked down at Jonah. His face was red from crying, nose running, breath ragged in the night air. She bit her lip. "I live nearby," Nathan said, choosing each word slowly. "You can both warm up. Just for a little while. You'll be safe. You have my word." He saw her battle it internally, her grip on the baby, her narrowed eyes, her small frame still trying to protect someone even smaller. "Will you come back if you leave?" she asked suddenly. It was such a grown-up question. Nathan felt something catch in his throat. "Yes," he said. "I always come back." A pause. Then Ava stood. "Let's go," she said simply. She handed him nothing, still held Jonah herself, but she walked beside him. The building wasn't far, a penthouse suite Nathan rarely called home. Its lobby gleamed in marble and silence. The doorman stood, startled, as Nathan led a child with wild hair and a baby in tow. "Just visiting," Nathan muttered. The elevator ride was quiet. Ava watched every button he pressed. "You live at the top?" she asked. "Yeah." "Alone?" "Yeah." Why, he didn't answer. The elevator doors opened. Ava's eyes went wide at the size of the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, cold elegance. She didn't say a word. "Let's take care of Jonah first," Nathan said. "Heater's on. There's a blanket on that chair." She nodded and moved slowly toward it. He watched her adjust Jonah in her arms, tuck the blanket tighter around him. Nathan turned to the kitchen, pulling open cabinets he hadn't touched in weeks. Formula. Bottles. He didn't have any, but he had a phone and enough money to make anything happen in 10 minutes. He called down to the night concierge, requested baby formula, warm food, a small pack of diapers. Then he sat on the edge of the couch, across from the two strangers who no longer felt like strangers. "Do you want water?" "Tea." Ava shook her head. Jonah whimpered. Nathan exhaled. He didn't know what this was. He didn't know why his heart wouldn't stop pounding. But he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let them go back out into that cold again. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Nathan couldn't sleep. He sat in the corner armchair of the penthouse living room, elbows on knees, fingers interlaced. The city lights glowed behind the tall windows, throwing faint shadows across the room, but his eyes weren't on the skyline. They were on the two small forms curled on the couch. Ava had finally fallen asleep. At first, she refused. She sat rigid, holding Jonah tightly, even as her eyelids drooped. But the warmth, the food, and the safety she wasn't used to finally won over. Now she lay on her side, back to the cushions, baby brother tucked against her chest, both of them beneath a gray cashmere throw Nathan had never actually used. He should have felt relief, but what he felt was something stranger, a deep, tugging ache. He stood slowly and walked into the kitchen, careful not to wake them. Opened the fridge, closed it again. He wasn't hungry. He was trying to find something to do with his hands, his mind. He poured a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and stared down into it. Ava and Jonah, 2 names, 2 lives, and the timing, the look in her eyes, her voice. Nathan couldn't pretend he didn't feel something shift deep inside when she'd said them aloud. Ava, Jonah. He whispered them again under his breath, almost testing their weight. They didn't feel random. They felt chosen. Familiar in a way that felt like reopening a wound. His memory reached back 6 years ago. A morning light through gauzy curtains. The faint smell of lavender and sheet music ink. Elena laughing in bed beside him, curled around a piano magazine, her dark hair falling into her eyes. If it's a girl, Ava, she had said, tracing the name into his palm with her fingertip. And if it's a boy, Jonah. Sound good. They'd never gotten that far. The pregnancy had ended before it even began. A false alarm, followed by tears, silence, and then distance. And not long after that, Elena was gone. No letter, no call, no trace, just silence. He had searched at first, with quiet desperation, but she had vanished completely, as if she had never existed outside of the song she played and the coffee mugs she left half full. And now here was this girl, with that name, carrying that baby, saying her mother's name was Elena. He wanted to believe it was coincidence, but something deeper whispered, "You already know it's not." The intercom buzzed softly, making him jump. He crossed the room quickly and picked up the receiver. Delivery. Minutes later, the door opened, and a hotel-style cart rolled in bottled formula, diapers, a few baby essentials, and warm soup in a thermos. Nathan signed quickly, tipped generously, then turned back to the couch. Jonah stirred, making soft, breathy sounds. He crossed the floor slowly, crouched beside them. "Hey," he whispered. "Want some dinner, little man?" The baby blinked up at him, eyes sleepy, round cheeks flushed from sleep. Nathan took the bottle from the warmer, gently lifted Jonah from Ava's arms. The girl stirred but didn't wake. Her fingers reached out in her sleep, like muscle memory. "I'm here," Nathan whispered to her, "just feeding him." She settled again, breath steady. Jonah took the bottle easily. Nathan sat with him, watching the baby's tiny hand curl against his wrist. There was something terrifying about how fragile he was, how utterly dependent, and yet Jonah looked peaceful, content. Nathan exhaled slowly. He could feel the questions rising in his chest like steam from a boiling kettle. Why didn't Elena tell me? Is this really my child? Are both of them mine? And then came a colder thought. What if something worse had happened? What if she'd needed him all these years and he wasn't there? The guilt slammed into him before he could push it away. He looked down at Jonah, tiny fingers, a soft tuft of dark hair, quiet eyes that blinked up at him like stars just learning how to shine. Do you even know? Kid, do you know how your mom played Chopin with her eyes closed? Do you know how she used to laugh mid-song if she missed a note? He felt a tightness in his throat. He pressed his lips together and whispered, "You've got her eyes." Then he held Jonah until the bottle was empty, then until he fell back asleep. He returned the baby gently into Ava's arms, pulled the blanket around them again, and for a long time, he just watched. He watched the small rise and fall of their chests, the way Ava's face softened in sleep, the way her hand rested protectively on Jonah's head. Even while dreaming, they had no one, and yet she protected him with everything she had. Nathan leaned back against the armchair. He didn't know what came next, but he knew this. He couldn't just walk away. Not now. He closed his eyes and listened to the hum of the city below. It sounded different tonight, softer, like something was shifting in the air. Like maybe, just maybe, life was giving him a second chance. But if it was, he wasn't sure he deserved it, and that scared him more than anything. Morning came slowly, spilling gold across the hardwood floors of Nathan's penthouse. The city was already awake, horns and buses and chatter echoing through the glass windows. But inside the apartment, time moved more gently. Nathan stood at the edge of the kitchen counter, hands wrapped around a warm mug. He hadn't slept. Not really. He'd drifted off at some point in the armchair, but his mind had never fully let go. He kept glancing back at the couch, still unsure if the night had actually happened. But there they were. Ava, now sitting upright, hair a tangled halo around her head, her small arms still wrapped protectively around the baby sleeping in her lap. She didn't speak at first, just looked at him, wide-eyed, watching. "Good morning," Nathan said softly. She nodded, cautious. "How'd you sleep?" "Okay, hungry." She paused, then gave a small shrug, as if she wanted to say yes but didn't want to sound needy. I made oatmeal," he said. "It's not fancy, but warm. There's fruit, too." She looked down at Jonah, kissed his forehead, then carefully slid a pillow beneath him before standing up slowly. She moved like someone who expected to be scolded for taking up space. Nathan noticed the dirt around her wrists, the way her sweater sleeves were too long, the faint smudge across her cheek. He poured the oatmeal into 2 bowls, placed them on the bar counter with 2 small spoons. Ava climbed into the chair hesitantly, legs swinging beneath her. "You can add honey if you want," he offered. She looked up at him, surprised. She took 1 bite, then another, then another. Nathan smiled to himself and turned toward the fridge. He pretended to search for something while letting her eat in peace. "Do you like music?" he asked casually, over his shoulder. Ava nodded with her mouth full. "What kind Mom plays piano?" she mumbled. "All kinds. Mostly old stuff. The sad kind. But it's pretty." He kept his back turned a little longer. "Do you play too?" She shook her head. "But I can do this." She tapped a rhythm on the countertop. "This one she plays when she misses someone. I know it by heart." Nathan swallowed hard. He pulled out juice from the fridge and set it beside her. Ava took it with a small thank you. "Where were you going last night?" he asked gently. "Nowhere," she answered quickly. "Just looking for someplace warm." "And before that, the hospital. With Mom. But they didn't let me stay. Said she'd be gone a while and I should call someone. But I don't know anyone's number. They told me I could wait in the lobby. But then, they forgot about us. I think they thought someone picked us up. And they didn't." She shook her head again. "So I left. Jonah needed quiet and food, and I didn't want anyone to take him." Nathan rubbed his face slowly, a 6-year-old, walking into the night with a newborn in her arms, because no one was watching. "You did the right thing," he said. She looked surprised. "You took care of your brother. You protected him. That's more than a lot of adults would know how to do." Ava looked down, blinking hard. "I didn't know what else to do." "That's okay. You don't have to do it alone now." She glanced at him again, and this time her eyes lingered, as if searching his face for any crack or lie. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Nathan didn't speak right away. "Because you matter," he said at last, "and because I think I might know your mom." Her eyes narrowed. "How a long time ago," he said. "We were close, but then something happened, and she disappeared. I didn't even know she had kids." Ava didn't say anything for a moment. She just watched him, then asked, "Did you love her?" The question knocked the wind out of him. He took a breath. Set down his coffee. "Yes," he said simply. "I still do." Ava looked down at her bowl. She loves someone. she said after a while. She told me. She said he was smart and quiet and kind, but that she couldn't see him again. Because it wasn't safe. Safe, Nathan asked. Confused? Ava nodded. Said it wasn't his fault, but being near him made things dangerous. What things Ava didn't answer. She just looked at Jonah, and Nathan could see she wasn't just a child repeating what she'd heard. She understood. Nathan reached for his phone and opened the browser. Do you know her full name? Your mom's Elena Myers. He typed it in, narrowed the location filter, added keywords, hospital, emergency, childbirth, Brooklyn. After a few minutes, something popped up. A patient record on a local support forum. Anonymous, but it mentioned a 33-year-old pianist brought in for hemorrhaging post-delivery. Listed as Elena M. at County Medical. Nathan froze. The timeline matched. The name. The piano reference. And the fact that a woman like her had gone unnoticed in a city like this only confirmed his gut feeling. He turned back to Ava. I think I know where she is. Can we go? Ava asked quickly. Like, now soon. I just need to call someone first. Who, a doctor? A friend? He walked into the hallway, dialed a private contact at County Medical. Yeah, it's me. I need to know if you've admitted a woman early 30s. Dark hair, pianist, gave birth in the last week. Name's Elena Myers. The voice on the other end paused. There was a patient by that name. Still in ICU. Is she okay? She's stable. But it was bad. Hemorrhaging. She's still unconscious. Nathan closed his eyes. Can I see her? You're not listed as next of kin. Can I bring her daughter? Another pause. Let me check with the attending. Hang tight. Nathan returned to the living room. Ava stood, arms wrapped around Jonah again, rocking him gently. We can go, right? Yeah, he said softly. We'll see her soon. She smiled just a little, for the first time, and in that moment, something in Nathan cracked again. Not in a painful way, but in the way a frozen lake begins to thaw under morning sun. The hospital smelled like bleach and overheated plastic. That specific scent of machines doing their job, working harder than human bodies can, keeping people suspended between two worlds, alive, but waiting. Nathan hated hospitals. He had avoided them for years, ever since his father passed. And now, here he was again, in a wing that was far too quiet for mid-morning. His footsteps on the tile echoed softly as he walked beside Ava, who clutched Jonah close in a gray blanket. She didn't ask questions. She just walked beside him, eyes alert, mouth silent. The nurse at the front desk gave them a tired look. Can I help you? Nathan showed her the message on his phone from Dr. Anwar, the attending physician. A brief approval to visit patient Elena Myers, room 414 ICU. The nurse scanned the screen. Then her gaze shifted to Ava. She nodded. Room's down the hall. Left side. But only family. Please. Nathan's voice was steady. We are family. He didn't know if that was a lie or the truest thing he'd ever said. Room 414 was dimly lit. Machines beeped in a steady rhythm. Elena lay there, unmoving, pale. Her hands rested neatly on either side of the thin blanket. Her dark hair had been pulled back loosely, a few strands curling at her temples. She looked so small. Not gone, but not here either. Ava's breath caught. She stepped forward slowly, tightening her grip on Jonah. Her chin quivered, but she didn't cry. Mama. No answer. She moved to the side of the bed, reached for her mother's hand. Her fingers brushed against the IV line and recoiled, startled. Then she reached again, slower this time, and placed her tiny palm over Elena's. It's me, Mama, it's Ava. I got Jonah like you said. I kept him warm. I did the bottles right." Her voice cracked on the last word. Nathan watched, heart caught in his throat. Ava turned back toward him. "She's sleeping weird. She's healing," he said gently. "Will she wake up? I think so. I hope so." Ava leaned forward, rested her forehead against her mother's arm. "Remember the song you always play when I'm sick? That one with the high notes and the slow part at the end? I tried to hum it to Jonah, but I messed it up. You got to teach me again." "Okay." Nathan stepped forward, stopping a few feet from the bed. Seeing Elena like this was like looking at a version of the past frozen in time. It undid something in him. He remembered that exact line she had used once. "Music can heal, Nathan, even when words fail." He remembered her sitting on his old piano bench, eyes closed, back straight, as her fingers moved like they were born to do just that. Heal. Ava stood quietly now, rocking back and forth on her heels, unsure what to do next. "Would you like to sit?" Nathan asked. She nodded. He pulled up a chair beside the bed and let her climb in. She placed Jonah carefully on her lap, one hand still wrapped around her mother's fingers. Nathan sat in the second chair, across from them, and let the silence settle. A few minutes passed. Then Ava spoke, her voice low. "She taught me to count using piano keys." "Really, yeah. Middle C was one. Then the next one was 2. But only the white ones." He smiled. "That sounds like her. And sometimes, she said the piano's the only place she felt safe." Nathan looked up, surprised. She said that Ava nodded, said when she was scared, she'd just play and pretend the world couldn't get in. Nathan felt the ache again. He didn't know how Elena had lived for the past 6 years, where she went, who she became, but hearing that made something inside him crumble. He stood and walked slowly to the far side of the bed, opposite Ava. His hand hovered in the air for a moment, unsure. Then gently, he touched Elena's wrist, just a brush of skin, not enough to wake her, but enough to say, "I'm here." He didn't speak aloud, but his thoughts were loud. "Why didn't you tell me? Where did you go? How could you do this alone?" And yet, even with the questions clawing at him, he wasn't angry, not fully, not yet, because here she was, still breathing, still here, still holding on, and here were the 2 miracles she somehow protected long enough to bring into this world. Jonah stirred and whimpered. Ava rocked him gently, whispering, "Shh, shh, I got you." Nathan turned back to watch her. She wasn't just any child. She carried herself like someone older, someone shaped by more than just storybooks and lullabies. She had seen hard things, had done hard things. She had survived. He crouched beside her chair. "Would it be okay if I held him for a little while?" Ava looked unsure. She hesitated. "I'll be gentle," he promised. "You can sit beside your mom for a bit." She looked at him, searching for something again. "Okay," she said quietly, "but support his neck. And he likes the bounce. Not too much, just a little." Nathan smiled, nodding. "Got it." She carefully transferred Jonah into his arms. The baby blinked up sleepily. Nathan adjusted his hold, remembering how small newborns really were. Jonah let out a tiny sigh and relaxed. Ava stepped to the edge of her mom's bed again. "You can come home when you're better," she whispered. "Mr. Rue has a piano, just like yours. He said he remembers you." Nathan lifted his eyes at the sound of her words. "Mr. Rue." She turned to him. "That's what I call you. Your name's hard." He chuckled softly. Fair enough. There was a long silence. Then Ava asked, "Are you going to leave?" "What do you mean, like?" "When she wakes up. Are you going to go?" Nathan's smile faded. "I don't want to, but I don't know what she'll want, or what's best for you and Jonah." Ava frowned. "She used to talk about you, a lot. Said you were good and smart, but broken sometimes." Nathan swallowed. "She said if you ever saw me, you'd know what that I was yours." The room fell silent. Nathan's breath caught. She looked at him, eyes calm but serious. "Are you?" "I don't know," he said gently. "But I want to find out." Ava didn't smile, but she nodded. "Okay." She walked back to her chair, sat down, and leaned her head against the armrest. "You should learn lullabies," she mumbled, already drifting off. "Jonah likes those better than silence." Nathan looked down at the baby again, then at Elena, and somehow, despite the wires and IVs and the weight of unanswered questions, he didn't feel lost anymore. He felt like he had just been given the first few notes of a song he hadn't finished writing. Ava leaned down and rested her forehead against her mother's arm. She didn't speak again, not for a while. Her small fingers traced the lines of Elena's skin like they were memorizing her all over again. Jonah, cradled in her other arm, stirred softly. Nathan took a step closer, then another. He looked at Elena for the first time in 6 years. Her face had barely changed. The same high cheekbones, the same small freckle near her left brow. But her expression was different now. Still, removed, like she was waiting behind her eyelids, unsure whether to come back. He remembered how animated she used to be. Elena had lived inside her music, her laugh echoing through the corners of his old loft as she rehearsed Chopin in bare feet. She had filled rooms with light, with story, with the kind of joy that wasn't loud, just quietly undeniable. And now, she lay still beneath hospital blankets, her body thin and bruised by labor and blood loss. A woman who had carried 2 lives into the world and almost didn't survive it. Nathan sat in the chair by the bed. "You know she's strong, right?" Ava nodded. "Stronger than anyone. She plays piano even when her hands hurt. She said music helps keep sadness in one place." Nathan felt something sting behind his eyes. "She told you that, and that you can tell if someone loves you by how they stay quiet when you're crying, not trying to fix it, just staying." That sounded like her. He leaned back slowly, watching Ava gently pat Jonah's back as he squirmed. Her instincts were incredible. She was so young, yet she moved like someone who had always been responsible for someone else. "Does he sleep much?" Nathan asked softly. "Only on my chest, or Mama's chest, but she hasn't held him in a while. So, I do both." "You're really good at taking care of him." She shrugged. "It's just what we do." The silence sat gently between them, a rare kind of silence that wasn't heavy or uncomfortable, just full. Then Ava looked around the room. "Does she have her music?" "She always has music, even when we didn't have much stuff. She kept her book, the brown one with flowers on the cover." Nathan nodded slowly. "I'll ask the nurse." He stepped out into the hallway and found a nurse with kind eyes and tired hands. "Excuse me." Her daughter mentioned a music book, brown cover, flowers. The nurse thought for a second. There was a satchel that came in with her. "Let me check." Minutes later, she returned with a soft leather-bound music journal. The edges were frayed, and a ribbon held it together. Nathan brought it back inside and handed it to Ava. She clutched it to her chest like a treasure. "Can I play something? Do you know how just a little, not like Mama, but I can do her favorite one?" Nathan helped her find the tiny upright piano in the visitor's lounge near the ICU. It was dusty and out of tune, but it worked. She opened the book carefully, fingers running across the pages. She paused at a marked corner and then placed both hands on the keys. The melody that came out was simple, uneven, but haunting. It was the same tune Elena used to play on rainy mornings, a melody of waiting, of hope wrapped in sadness. Nathan sat behind her, completely still. Ava didn't look up. She played through the slips and hesitations, repeating the melody until her fingers remembered it better, until the echo of her mother's music filled the empty corridor. When she finished, she looked back at him. That one was for when she missed someone. Nathan said nothing. He couldn't. Later, back in the room, Ava placed the music book beside Elena on the bed, just in case she wants to read it, she whispered. Then she curled up in the hospital chair with Jonah, trying to make herself as small as possible. Nathan stayed seated, watching them. He didn't reach for his phone. He didn't check his emails. For the first time in years, there was no noise in his head about meetings or money or deadlines. Only questions. Questions that echoed like Ava's melody. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you go? And if you wake up, what happens next? He leaned forward and gently touched Elena's wrist. "I'm here. I don't know why you left, but I know you were scared. And if that's all it was, I forgive you." His voice was barely a whisper now. "I miss so much. Too much. But I'm not going anywhere this time." The machines beeped steadily. Ava had fallen asleep again, head tucked against Jonah's tiny body. Nathan sat back. He didn't need answers right now. Just time. And maybe, if the universe allowed, a second beginning. The following day passed in a strange kind of calm. Nathan returned to the penthouse with Ava and Jonah after the nurses gently encouraged them to rest at home. The ICU wasn't meant for overnight stays by children, and they promised to call immediately if Elena stirred. Nathan left his number with every desk, every shift nurse, every line of contact he could. Back home, the silence wasn't as heavy as before. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with small sounds. Jonah's soft gurgles, the rustle of Ava moving around the couch, the hum of the kettle. Nathan had never seen his space so lived in. It unsettled him, and it comforted him at the same time. In the kitchen, Ava sat at the counter, drawing on a legal pad he handed her. Her legs swung under the bar stool. Beside her, a baby monitor rested quietly, picking up the faint coos and sighs of Jonah, napping in the guest room crib that had been delivered that morning. Nathan poured tea for both of them. Ava didn't take sugar. She had already told him that. "Do you think she'll wake up soon?" she asked without looking up from her drawing. He didn't lie. "I hope so." She drew a piano, then scribbled her name in a corner, then Jonah's, then paused. "What if she forgets me?" Nathan leaned forward. "She won't. Not ever. But what if her brain got messed up?" He nodded slowly, understanding the fear, the unspoken panic that always hovered in children when they didn't have answers. "If that happens, we'll help her remember. We'll remind her of everything. The songs, your favorite soup, the way you rock Jonah when he cries." Ava tilted her head. "You really knew her," he smiled softly. "Yeah, a long time ago." "Was she the same?" He took a deep breath. "She was quieter then. Sad sometimes, but funny. So talented. And she loved things fiercely, especially music. She used to play like the world disappeared when her fingers touched the keys. Ava nodded like she understood exactly what that meant. She said music was like breathing, that she didn't know how to stop doing it, even when she wanted to. That sounds just like her. Then Ava said something he didn't expect. She used to talk to herself when she thought I was asleep. About you. Nathan felt the air shift. What did she say? She said you were the only man who ever really saw her, but that you didn't see yourself, and that scared her. He looked down at his cup, letting the words sink in. He knew exactly what she meant. After a while, Ava slid the notepad across the counter. It was a picture of their hospital room. Elena in bed, Ava in the chair, Jonah in her arms, and across the drawing, standing at the foot of the bed, was a tall figure. He recognized himself. You drew me? She shrugged. You belong in the picture. A lump formed in Nathan's throat. He hadn't belonged anywhere for a long time. Later that afternoon, while Ava napped with Jonah curled against her chest, Nathan stepped into the hallway and made a call he had been putting off. It rang 3 times before a voice answered. Mara Green, Genetic Consulting. This is Dr. Green. Hey, it's Nathan Rourke. The line went quiet. Nathan. Wow. Haven't heard from you since the board retreat. Everything okay? I need a paternity test. There was a pause. For you, yeah. There's a little girl and a baby boy. Their mother's name is Elena Myers. The name clicked. He could hear it in the silence. You want to know if they're yours? Yes. You'll need a sample. Something from her. Blood. Hair. Swab. Whatever you can get that isn't too invasive. She's in a coma, and something from the kids will work. You swab their cheeks. I'll send a courier tonight. Nathan exhaled. Thanks. Do you want the results fast-tracked? As fast as possible. He hung up and turned toward the guest room. Both children slept soundly, Jonah breathing against Ava's chest, her arms wrapped around him like always. He stood in the doorway longer than he needed to. How was it possible to love something so deeply that wasn't even confirmed as yours? But in his gut, he already knew. The test would only prove what his soul had already accepted. He returned to the living room and sat quietly. No music, no emails, just thoughts. He had built his life around success, control, precision. He had organized his world in neat columns and timelines, but nothing in this moment fit that model. And maybe that was a good thing. That night, while warming a bottle, Nathan remembered the first time he and Elena had disagreed about something real. It was a late summer night. She had wanted to play a charity recital for children in a hospice center. He had been scheduled for a crucial investor dinner in London the same weekend. He'd asked her to reschedule. She'd said softly, I don't cancel on people who need me just because something shinier comes along. He hadn't understood then. Not really. But now, with Jonah in one arm and a bottle in the other, he thought back to that moment with a new heart. She had always known what mattered. He was just late catching up. He fed the baby slowly, the tiny boy's fingers curling around his shirt. In that quiet, he whispered something into the air. I don't know what kind of father I'll be, or if I'll be one at all. But if I get the chance, I'll show up. I'll stay. He rocked Jonah gently until his eyelids fluttered shut. Then he laid him back down and kissed the top of Ava's head as she stirred. He returned to his armchair and waited for the courier to arrive. The envelope was thin, unassuming. It sat on the kitchen counter beneath a shaft of late morning sunlight. its presence heavier than any document Nathan had signed in a decade. And he had signed plenty: contracts, acquisitions, settlements, but never something like this. Inside that envelope was a truth that could undo or remake his entire life. He stared at it for a long time. The courier had come quietly at dawn, handed it off with a professional nod, and disappeared before the city had even finished its first cup of coffee. Nathan hadn't opened it right away. He had taken care of Ava first, made her breakfast eggs and toast, no crust. Jonah had slept through the morning, worn out from the latest growth spurt. The house was peaceful. For now. Nathan had put the envelope aside, but now he was alone in the kitchen. No distractions, no noise, and the truth waited. He reached for it, slit the seal with a knife, and pulled out the folded sheet. His hands didn't shake, but something inside him did. He unfolded the page, read the names, read the result. Positive. Both. The words blurred for a moment, and he had to blink hard to bring them back into focus. Both children were his: Ava, Jonah. He swallowed, one hand gripping the counter. There was no question now. No more maybe. They were his children. The silence that followed was strange. Not relief, not fear. Something deeper, something primal. A need to protect, a need to reclaim the lost time, no matter how impossible that was. He walked to the living room, stopped in the doorway. Ava sat on the floor with Jonah in her lap, showing him how to hold a rattle. She spoke in a whisper, her voice soft and full of patience. "See, you gotta shake it. Like this. Not too hard. Just enough to make the sound." Jonah giggled. Nathan smiled, but didn't step forward. He just watched. They weren't just children. They were a beginning he never saw coming. And now that he knew the truth, there was no going back. He would fight for them, care for them, do what should have been done from the start. But just as that thought settled in his chest like a vow, the doorbell rang. A single chime. Sharp, unexpected. Nathan glanced at the clock. Noon. He walked to the door and opened it without checking. A woman stood there, maybe early 40s, red lipstick, sleek bob haircut, designer coat, sharp eyes. Behind her, a man in a black suit held a briefcase. Nathan didn't recognize either of them. "Can I help you?" The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Rourke, I presume." "Yes. My name is Lorraine Cutter. I'm a representative from Child Protective Services. This is my associate, Mr. Winslow." Nathan's face hardened. "CPS." "That's correct. We received a call regarding 2 minors currently under your care. A girl named Ava and an infant, Jonah. Who called you? We're not authorized to disclose that information. What we are authorized to do is conduct a welfare check and assess the environment in which the children are staying." Nathan crossed his arms. "They're my children." She blinked. "I'm sorry, I just received confirmation. Paternity tests. Both are biologically mine. Do you have that documentation?" He stepped back inside for a moment, returned with the envelope, and handed it to her. She opened it, read the lines quickly, nodded once. "That certainly changes the context, but we still need to confirm certain safety standards, especially since the children were found unaccompanied on the street just days ago." Nathan's jaw clenched. "They weren't found. I found them. And I brought them here because no one else was looking out for them. Their mother is currently in intensive care. Correct?" "Yes. And you're listed as no emergency contact or legal guardian. She vanished 6 years ago. I didn't know about the children until now. Then I'd recommend beginning a formal custody process immediately." "We can discuss that after your welfare check," he said, stepping aside. They entered. The woman's eyes scanned the room like a security system. She noticed the crib, the folded laundry, the baby monitor, the half-finished drawing on the counter. She walked to the play area where Ava sat with Jonah, still unaware of what was happening. "Hi there, sweetheart," she said with a soft, deliberate tone. "I'm Lorraine. What's your name?" Ava blinked up. She looked at Nathan, who nodded gently. "It's okay. You can talk to her." Ava said nothing, just held Jonah closer. Lorraine crouched beside her. "Do you like it here?" Ava didn't answer. "Have you been safe here? Do you have food and warm clothes?" Still nothing. Nathan spoke up. "She's not going to open up to strangers, especially not if you're talking to her like she's 5. She is 5. She's not the kind of 5 you're used to." The woman stood. "Mr. Rourke, this is not an adversarial visit, but I want to be clear. If you are intending to keep custody, there will be inspections, evaluations, psychological reviews, and interviews with the mother when she regains consciousness. Understood. And if the environment is found unsuitable—" He stepped forward. "It won't be." There was steel in his voice now. Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "I hope that's true. For everyone's sake." She turned toward Ava again. "Would you like to show me your room?" Ava hesitated. "It's okay," Nathan said again. Ava stood up slowly, still holding Jonah, and led the woman toward the guest room. The man with the briefcase stayed behind. He stepped closer to Nathan. "Off the record," he said quietly. "She's thorough but fair. Just don't give her a reason to question your stability." "I'm stable," Nathan replied coldly. "I'm just tired of people acting like they know better than a father." "Mr. Winslow nodded once, then followed after Lorraine. When they left an hour later, Lorraine handed him a preliminary report. "We'll follow up within 72 hours. Nathan closed the door after them and locked it. Then he leaned his forehead against the cool wood and took a breath. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary, and worth every fight. It was just after 3 in the morning when the phone rang. Nathan reached for it in the dark, still half asleep. His heart jumped before he even read the screen. It was the hospital. He sat up, answered immediately. "Mr. Rourke." "Yes. This is Nurse Patel from County General. I'm calling about Elena Myers." He stopped breathing. She opened her eyes. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. "Is she awake, or just—" "She's conscious, responsive, a little disoriented, but she's asking for her daughter, and for you. For me, yes, sir." He was already on his feet, pulling on jeans and a hoodie. On the other side of the penthouse, the baby monitor was still transmitting Ava's steady breathing and Jonah's quiet coos. He didn't wake them. He scribbled a note and left it on the kitchen counter. "Gone to see your mom. We'll call. Stay cozy. You are loved." The streets were quiet as his car glided through them. It felt like the whole city was paused, waiting with him. He didn't realize how tightly he was gripping the wheel until his fingers started to ache. When he arrived at the hospital, the night staff waved him through. The ICU hallway felt warmer this time, less sterile, the beeping in the background somehow less sharp. He stepped into room 414. Elena was sitting up. Not fully, but enough. Her eyes found him the moment the door opened. They were tired, but not empty. She blinked slowly. "Hi, Nathan." His chest tightened. "Hi." He stepped closer, cautiously, like she might disappear if he moved too fast. She looked different. Frail. Hollow in the cheeks. Her voice was raspy. But it was her. The same woman who used to hum while stirring tea. The same woman who had vanished without a word. "You're really here," she said. He nodded. "You scared everyone. You know, I scared myself." There was a long silence. Then Elena shifted slightly. "How did you find them?" He let out a breath. "Ava found me." What, she was on a bench, holding Jonah. It was freezing. I was walking through Central Park. She asked me for help. Elena's eyes welled up. No one was supposed to. She stopped herself, looked away. "I was trying to come back," she whispered, "but I didn't know how." Nathan sat in the chair beside her bed. "Start now," he said quietly. She was silent. "Then I didn't want them to be pawns. Pawns in your world, your name, your legacy. That's what you think I would have done. Not intentionally, but you live in a place that consumes everything gentle. Ava's too sensitive. Jonah too small. So you ran, I survived. There's a difference." He nodded slowly. "And what about me? You would have tried to fix everything. Like always. But you can't fix this. You can only feel it." She looked away again, and I wasn't sure you knew how. Her words didn't sting as much as they used to. Maybe because he had changed, or maybe because she was right. "I know they're mine," he said softly. "I got the tests. I know." She reached slowly for the cup of water beside her, but her fingers trembled too much. Nathan reached out and held it for her. She sipped, then leaned back against the pillows. "Do they seem okay?" "More than okay. Ava's brilliant. Jonah's peaceful. They both adore you. I'm not sure I deserve it. None of us do," he said. She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing his voice like sunlight. "I've thought about this moment every day for 6 years. Me too. And what did you imagine? That you'd be gone, or angry, or both? I was. Then I saw her, and it all rewrote itself." She opened her eyes again. "Did she recognize you? But she told me your name. And then she asked if I knew a song." He paused. "The one you play when you're lonely?" Elena smiled faintly. "She remembers everything." Nathan leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed of what that I couldn't offer more than love. You think that's small in your world?" "Yes, but it was the only thing I had left." Nathan sat back. "We could have figured it out. I was sick. Nathan. Emotionally. Financially. Everything. And then I got pregnant. And I thought, you'd try to save me. Like a project. Like an acquisition. You're not a project. I know. But I had to believe that. Alone." He exhaled, rubbing his face. "Do you want to be part of their lives again?" Elena blinked at him. "More than anything? Then let me help." "As what?" "Whatever you need me to be. Father, friend. Something in between." They sat in silence. Then her voice cracked again. "I missed you." He swallowed hard. "I missed myself. When you left." He reached for her hand. Let it rest in his. It was cold, but it didn't pull away. They stayed that way for a long time. Not speaking, just breathing. Somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped. A nurse's shoes clicked against the tile. Life kept going. But for Nathan, everything paused. He had her hand. He had the truth. And for the first time in a long time, he had a beginning. By the end of the week, Elena had been moved out of the ICU. Her strength was returning slowly, painfully. But Nathan could already see the fire in her eyes again. She was healing, And yet, something in her remained guarded, like she didn't quite believe any of it was real. Not the white hospital sheets, not the quiet apologies between them, not even the children waiting for her back at the penthouse. On the morning of her scheduled discharge, Nathan arrived early. He brought her soft clothes, a warm coat, and a scarf Ava had insisted on packing. "You'll look like you used to," Ava had said, placing it in his hands, like someone strong. Nathan had smiled, but now, seeing Elena sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, folding the scarf slowly between her fingers, that word strong felt heavier than ever. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Ready enough." A nurse wheeled her down to the lobby while Nathan stepped away to finalize discharge paperwork. When he returned, she was sitting alone by the windows, watching snow fall outside. Her face was pale but calm. "You sure you want to come back to the penthouse?" She glanced over. "Where else would I go? I didn't want to assume." Her gaze lingered on him. "I'm tired of running. Nathan." Those words settled between them, quiet but massive. He offered his hand. She took it. The drive home was slow. Snow slicked the roads. Inside the car, neither of them said much. Elena stared out the window. Nathan kept his hands at 10 and 2, jaw tight. As they neared the building, Elena's phone buzzed. She hadn't used it since waking up. The screen lit up again, then again. Nathan glanced at her. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer. He watched her stiffen as she read the messages. Then she turned off the phone. That was him, wasn't it? Elena didn't respond. "You said you were alone," he continued. "I was. But someone still thinks they have a stake in all this." She looked out the window again. Let it go for now. Nathan. He didn't. Because deep down, he already knew what was coming. Back at the penthouse, Ava nearly tackled her mother with joy. She wrapped her arms around Elena's waist, pressing her face into her stomach, like she was afraid she'd vanish again. "I didn't forget anything," Ava whispered. "I took care of Jonah. I sang the songs. I waited." Elena knelt slowly, ignoring the ache in her knees, and held both children close. "You saved him, baby. You saved both of you." Nathan stood quietly nearby, unsure if he belonged in that circle of love. But then Elena looked at him, really looked, and whispered, "Thank you for not turning away." That night, they all sat around the fireplace. No TV, no music, just soft conversation. Nathan poured wine, but Elena barely touched hers. They were just starting to feel like a unit, like a fragile but real family, one held together by honesty and intention. Then came the knock at the door. It wasn't forceful, but it carried weight. Nathan opened it and immediately recognized the man standing there. Dark wool coat, gray eyes, confident posture. The same man who had stood behind Lorraine Cutter from CPS. Mr. Winslow. This time, he wasn't with her. He held a thick envelope. "Evening, Mr. Rourke. What is it?" "A summons? To what family court?" Nathan stared at him. "Why, you're being petitioned for joint custody by a man named Trevor Lang, former acquaintance of Miss Myers." Nathan didn't say a word. He just took the envelope, closed the door, and leaned against it. His breath was shallow. He walked back into the room. Elena had already gone pale. "He's doing it," she said flatly. "Trevor." Nathan dropped the envelope on the coffee table. "He's not going to win." "Elena, you don't know him." "Then tell me." "He was kind. At first. Helpful. He got me through my pregnancy. He said he just wanted to be around, that he didn't care who the father was. But when Jonah was born, Everything changed. He got possessive, controlling. He wanted to name Jonah, said I owed him something for sticking around. Did you put him on the birth certificate? No, but he's smart. He'll try to make it look like I was unstable, which I was at times. She dropped her gaze. He knows my worst days. He was there. Nathan sat beside her. We'll fight this. You don't know how ugly he can get. I don't need to. I just need to know one thing. He paused. Do you want me to fight with you? She looked up. Yes. Then it's done. The next few days passed in a haze of preparation. Lawyers, paperwork, statements, psychological evaluations. Elena gave her testimony via affidavit. Nathan filed for full custody with her consent. They presented paternity results, medical records, Ava's statements, even her drawings. And still, the court was skeptical, because Trevor had filed his petition first, because he painted Elena as a fragile mother who had left her children in the cold, and Nathan, a man with wealth but no official ties. On the morning of the hearing, the courtroom was stiff with tension. Trevor arrived in a press suit, flanked by his attorney. He looked smug, too relaxed. Nathan sat with his lawyer, eyes forward, calm on the outside, but inside a storm. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The hearing began. Testimonies were read. Elena's medical records were presented, photos of the children, evaluations, social worker reports. Then came the question, who offers the most stable, nurturing, consistent home? Nathan stood. I didn't ask to be a father, but I was asked to show up. And when I saw Ava that night freezing, scared, holding a newborn in her arms, something inside me shifted. I didn't know she was mine, but I knew she was someone's, someone who deserved everything. And now that I know the truth, I'm not walking away. I may not have years of bedtime stories or scraped knees behind me, but I have years ahead, and I'm not going anywhere. When he finished, there was a long silence. Even Trevor looked rattled. Then the judge spoke. Final decision pending, but I commend your sincerity. Mr. Rourke. Nathan sat down, heart pounding. When it was over, Elena gripped his hand outside the courtroom. No matter what happens, she said, thank you. He didn't say anything back. He just held on tighter, because some things don't need words. The piano had been silent for years. It sat in the corner of Nathan's living room. More sculpture than instrument. He had bought it on a whim years ago, thinking one day he might learn. But the keys had never felt like his. They'd belonged to someone else long before he met them. Elena stood in front of it now. One hand rested on the lid, fingertips grazing the smooth wood. Ava sat cross-legged on the rug, Jonah in her lap, both watching without a word. Nathan leaned against the doorway, arms crossed but expression soft. Elena didn't rush. She lifted the lid gently, as though waking something sacred. Dust clung to the edges of the ivory keys. Her eyes closed as she pressed one. The note rang out thin, slightly flat, but it filled the room like a ghost had returned. She pressed another, then another. Ava whispered, "Is it the one?" Elena looked down. "Not yet." She took a breath and placed both hands on the keys. The melody began slowly. It wasn't the familiar lullaby, not the one Ava had learned by ear, or the one Nathan had remembered from years ago. This was something different, darker, sadder, woven with hesitation. Nathan recognized it not from memory but from emotion. It sounded like regret. It sounded like waking up after years of quiet pain. Elena's fingers trembled through the first few bars, but then something changed. Her back straightened, her eyes closed. The music steadied. Ava didn't speak again. Jonah gurgled once, then went quiet. It wasn't a perfect performance. Her muscles had weakened. Her breath occasionally shook with effort. But the story in the music was clear. It was a story of two people, one who had run and one who had stayed. And both, in their own way, had lost something in the silence between them. Nathan listened without moving. He remembered her playing this once, only once, back in the old loft, on a stormy October evening. She'd told him it was a piece she never played for anyone. It didn't have a name. She just called it The Door. When the last note faded, Elena rested her hands on her lap. She looked tired, but lighter. Ava spoke first. "That wasn't your happy song." "No. Was it your sad one?" "Kind of. It's the one I play when I'm trying to forgive myself." Nathan pushed off the doorway. For what? For leaving. For staying gone too long. For not being brave when it counted. She turned slightly toward him. "And for not letting you in when I should have." He nodded. "What's it called?" She gave him a small smile. "It's always been yours to name." He stepped forward, thought for a moment, then looked at Ava. She was still rocking Jonah gently. He answered softly, "Let's call it The First Morning." Elena blinked, then nodded. "That fits." That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Nathan and Elena sat across from each other on the living room floor. A single lamp lit the space between them. "I haven't played that in years," she whispered. "I could tell. But it's still there," Nathan added. "In your hands, in my heart," she said. "It never really left." He hesitated, then asked the question that had haunted him quietly for days. "Was there ever a chance back then that you would have told me she didn't answer right away?" "Then yes. Once. When I was 4 months pregnant with Ava. I saw your name in a magazine. Something about your company going public. There was a picture. You were smiling. I remember that day. It was staged. I know. But I believed it. And I thought he's okay. He moved on. He doesn't need this complication. You weren't a complication. To myself, I was." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Nathan said, "You still do that thing, where you look away when you're telling the truth." Elena smiled faintly. "You still do that thing where you clench your hands when you're afraid." He looked down. He was. "Are you afraid now?" she asked. "Yes." "Of what? Of waking up one day and realizing I imagined all of this? That I didn't get a second chance? That you're not really here?" She reached out, took his hand. "This is real, and I'm not going anywhere." He looked at her, eyes serious. "Neither am I." A knock broke the moment, soft, almost hesitant. Nathan stood, opened the door. It was Lorraine Cutter. She held another envelope. "We got the ruling," she said. Nathan's face went still. Lorraine handed it to him. "I didn't want to wait until morning. Thought you'd want to read it sooner." Elena stepped closer. "What is it?" "The court's final decision." He opened it, read the first line, then looked up. "We got custody." Elena let out a long, shaking breath. Lorraine nodded. "There will still be follow-ups, but effective immediately. You're recognized as the legal guardians. Sole custody, joint between you two." Elena stepped back, hand to her chest. "I didn't think we'd—" "You did everything right," Lorraine said. "And Ava's drawings. They broke half the office." Even the judge got misty. Nathan smiled. "Thank you." Lorraine gave a nod and left quietly. They stood in the doorway. still stunned. "We're a family," Elena whispered. Nathan turned to her. "We always were. Now it's just official." She laughed through the tears. Ava came stumbling out moments later, rubbing her eyes. "What happened?" Nathan picked her up, spun her gently. "You get to stay. With both of us. Always." She smiled, leaned her head against his chest. Then Jonah began to cry. Elena moved instantly, disappearing down the hall to gather him. And in that moment, surrounded by soft lamps, gentle voices, and the echo of music still in the walls, Nathan felt something he hadn't known in years. Peace. The news broke quietly at first. A small blog post, then a press release, then a ripple across social media. Billionaire Nathan Rourke had taken sudden parental custody of 2 children, and the public didn't know what to make of it. Speculation bloomed overnight. Tabloid headlines screamed secret heirs of tech titan who is Elena Myers. And why did she vanish from boardrooms to bedtime bottles? The Rourke revelation. At first, Nathan ignored it, but his communications director, Alicia Monroe, didn't. "You need to say something," she told him, "or they'll fill the silence with poison." "I don't owe the public anything," he said. "No, but Ava and Jonah do." That landed, so he agreed to one interview, only one, with someone he trusted. The room was quiet except for the low hum of cameras and a soft clink of coffee mugs. Across from Nathan sat Marcy Caldwell, veteran journalist and longtime friend. She had been there in the early days of Rourke Technologies back when he was just a driven 25-year-old with a prototype and too little sleep. She adjusted her glasses and gave him a steady look. "You're not exactly known for being personal, Nathan. Why now?" He exhaled slowly, "Because sometimes silence doesn't protect the right people. And who are you protecting 2 children? And their mother?" Marcy paused. "Tell me about them." "Ava is 6. She's smarter than I'll ever be. She draws like she sees the world in layers. She memorizes music without knowing how to read it. Jonah's just a baby, but he has this calm, like he understands more than he should. And Elena," he smiled softly, "she's the only person I've ever met who could make music sound like memory." That answer surprised Marcy. She leaned forward slightly. "She disappeared for 6 years. Didn't she, yes? And you didn't know about the children?" "No. And yet you took them in immediately." He nodded. "Because I looked in Ava's eyes. And even before the tests, I knew." Marcy hesitated. "Some critics say you're doing this for image, that it's a calculated rebrand." He didn't flinch. "Let them say it. I don't care how it looks. I care that Ava feels safe when she falls asleep, that Jonah has someone watching when he takes his first steps, and that Elena never feels like she has to disappear again." Marcy sat back. "Why now?" "Because I spent most of my life chasing success. And when I finally had it, I realized I had no one to share it with. Then 2 children showed up, and suddenly nothing else mattered." Marcy studied him. "That's the first time I've seen you cry," she said softly. Nathan touched the corner of his eye, surprised by the tear. "I guess that's new too." They talked for another hour about fatherhood, regret, redemption. When the interview aired, it went viral within 12 hours. Elena didn't watch it live. She waited until midnight, alone on the couch, wrapped in a sweater. She clicked play. She had seen Nathan speak at tech conferences before, charming, sharp, always composed. But this was different. He looked honest. He looked raw. And when he spoke about her music, She had to pause the video to wipe her eyes. Ava wandered in, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you crying?" Elena opened her arms. Ava climbed into her lap. "Because someone told the truth. About me. About all of us." Ava leaned her head against her chest. "I like the truth. Even the sad parts." "Me too," Elena whispered. "But not everyone liked the truth." The morning after the interview aired, Elena received a message. No sender, just a voice note. It was Trevor Lang. "You think this is over? You think public sympathy fixes your history?" His voice was cold, calculated. "I have pictures. From the clinic. From the breakdown. I have what the court didn't ask for." She froze. Then he said the thing that made her blood run cold. "Tell Rourke to back off, or I'll remind the world what kind of mother you really are." She dropped the phone. Nathan found her minutes later, still staring at the floor. "What is it?" "Trevor. He's threatening to leak things. From when I wasn't okay." Nathan knelt beside her. "We can fight this. What if people believe him? Then they weren't on our side to begin with." She looked at him. "I don't want Ava to be ashamed of me." He took her hand. "She won't be. Not if you own your story. I'm not strong like you. You're stronger. You kept 2 kids alive. You taught one how to trust and the other how to feel safe. You survived. That's strength." She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "Let's tell the whole truth. Together." 3 days later, Elena gave an interview of her own. No makeup, no script, just a piano behind her and a camera crew. She spoke softly. "There were years I disappeared, not just from people, but from myself." She paused. "I was sick, not in a way that shows on an X-ray, but in the way sadness can crawl into your bones. I didn't tell Nathan because I thought I was protecting him, and I didn't tell the world because I was ashamed. But shame isn't truth. Shame is silence, and I'm done being silent." She ended the interview by playing a simple lullaby, one Ava had written. The response was immediate. Messages poured in from women, from survivors, from young mothers who felt unseen, from fathers who had failed and tried again. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about scandal. It was about healing. Nathan watched it all from the back of the studio, holding Jonah. Ava curled up beside him. When the final note faded, Ava whispered, "She played my song." He kissed her forehead. "Because she's proud of you. Are you proud of her?" He smiled, every second. Then they stood and walked to the stage. Elena was crying again, but not from fear. Nathan offered her a hand. She took it. No cameras, no script, just the 4 of them. A family made not from perfection, but from choice. The winter sun poured into the penthouse in long golden stripes. Ava sat alone at the piano, her little feet swinging off the bench, barely reaching the pedals. Her fingers hovered over the keys the way she'd seen her mother do hundreds of times. She wasn't playing a real song. Not yet. She was piecing something together, bits of melody from memory, snippets she'd heard in passing, notes she'd hummed to Jonah in the dark. She paused, pressed 2 notes again, then tilted her head. Something was missing. Nathan was sitting nearby, reading through emails he had no real interest in. Every few minutes, he'd look up just to watch her. "Ava," he said gently, "do you want me to get your mom?" She shook her head. "I want to try it alone." He nodded. She pressed another key, then another, and then, by chance or memory, she played a sequence that made her freeze. She played it again and again. Nathan noticed her posture change. Ava. She looked up at him. This is her sad song. Which one? The one she played when she thought I was asleep. After Jonah was born. After we moved again. Nathan rose slowly, walking over to stand behind her. She pressed the keys again. Elena entered the room just then, carrying folded laundry. When she heard the music, her arms dropped slightly. That melody. Where did you hear it? Ava turned. You played it. A lot. Back when we didn't have much food. You cried once after. Elena set the laundry down. Her face had gone pale. That's not a song I wrote for you. Then what is it? Elena didn't answer. She walked to the piano, placed a trembling hand on Ava's shoulder, and sat beside her. She played the rest of the melody delicate, incomplete, and then stopped short. That's the piece I wrote after. She swallowed hard. After I gave up the baby. Nathan's breath caught. What baby? Elena looked up at him slowly. Before Ava. Before I met you. It was years ago. I was 19. I had no money, no support. The father was gone. I was terrified. Nathan stepped closer, his voice low. You had a child. She nodded. I gave her up. For adoption. Closed papers. No contact. But I never stopped thinking about her. Ava stared at her mother, wide-eyed. Do I have a sister? Elena wiped her face. Yes. Somewhere. I don't know her name now. Or if she even knows about me. Why didn't you try to find her? Because I thought I didn't deserve her. The room went quiet. Only the hum of the heater filled the space. Nathan finally spoke. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. Elena stood, walked to the window. It's not just about me. It's about what it would do to her. To show up after all this time, after she's built a life. Ava slid off the bench. Maybe she's waiting. Elena turned. I don't even know if she remembers. But music remembers. Ava said. Nathan stepped beside her. Let's try. If she wants to find you too, then she will. Elena looked at both of them. Then slowly, she nodded. The search wasn't easy. The adoption had been private. The agency had changed hands twice. Records were sealed. There were confidentiality waivers, legal warnings, red tape everywhere. But Nathan had people. And eventually, one name came back. Olivia Hartley, age 19. Studying music education at a small liberal arts college upstate. She had been adopted by a couple both teachers. Stable. Loving. There was no indication she knew anything about her biological mother. Nathan held the file in his hands, but didn't open it. It felt too sacred to read without Elena. She stared at the envelope for a long time before taking it. When she finally opened it, she didn't cry. She smiled. She plays violin. Ava gasped. She plays music, too. Elena nodded. I guess it's in the blood. Can we meet her? Elena looked at Nathan. I don't want to shock her. We can write. So they did. Elena penned a letter by hand. Honest, vulnerable, simple. She didn't ask for a reunion. She simply said, I am the woman who carried you and let you go. I have loved you every day since. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. They mailed it to the agency, which agreed to pass it along. Then they waited. Days passed. A week. 2. Nothing. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived in a pale blue envelope. Ava was the one who found it. Mom. It's from her. Elena opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a short note. Dear Elena, thank you for writing to me. Yes, I would love to meet you. Music told me something was missing. Now I know what it was. With love, Olivia! Elena pressed the letter to her chest. Nathan wrapped his arms around her. Ava beamed. You have all your kids now? Not yet, Elena whispered. But soon. A week later. They met in a park. Neutral ground. Open space. No pressure. Olivia stood under a tree, scarf wrapped around her neck, violin case by her feet. Elena walked toward her slowly. When their eyes met, neither said anything. They just embraced. Olivia whispered, I knew your music. Elena smiled through her tears. I knew your heartbeat. Nathan stood back with Ava and Jonah, watching the two women begin to talk tentatively at first, then with more warmth. It was like watching a puzzle find its last piece. Later, Olivia knelt to greet Ava. Hi, I guess I'm your big sister. Ava grinned. Do you like peanut butter? Yes, then we're definitely sisters. They laughed. Jonah burbled something unintelligible and reached out. Olivia smiled and touched his tiny hand. It was quiet magic. Nathan placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. Are you okay? She nodded. For the first time in my life. I think I am. And you? He looked out across the snow-lined park. I think this is what it means to come home. The hall was quiet except for the soft shuffle of programs and the occasional cough. The room had once been a chapel, now repurposed into a recital space. It still carried the hush of reverence. The lights dimmed slowly. On stage, a single grand piano stood under a soft gold spotlight. Ava sat in the front row, fingers laced in her lap. Jonah slept peacefully against Nathan's chest. Olivia was seated beside them, violin across her knees, her eyes fixed ahead. And then Elena walked on stage. She wore a simple black dress. No jewelry, no pretense. Her hair was loosely pinned back, a few strands falling free as if they, too, refused to be contained. She paused before the piano, then turned to the audience. Thank you for being here, she said gently. I used to think music was something I needed to perfect before sharing it, but now I know it's something I needed to live before I could really play it. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her fingers on the keys. The first notes were familiar. They were the lullaby. But it was different now, richer, fuller. The melody that had once been whispered in darkness was now illuminated with grace. It had grown, like all of them had. After a few measures, Olivia rose and stepped into the spotlight. She didn't wait for applause. She simply lifted her bow and began to play. The piano and violin met like long-lost sisters, one steady and tender, the other high and questioning. They wove in and out of each other's voices, echoing and answering. Nathan didn't realize he was crying until Ava squeezed his hand. It's okay, she whispered. They're telling the story now. And they were. The story of loss, of silence, of finding your way home. Halfway through the piece, Elena added something new, a theme no one had heard before. It was hesitant at first, then rising, a motif of forgiveness, stitched between the original notes. Olivia mirrored it with harmony. It was like watching two lives, two timelines finally align. When the last note faded, the room stayed still. Then the applause began, slow, gentle, then full, not thunderous, but grateful. Elena stood, bowed once, and stepped into Olivia's arms. They held each other for a long moment, as if to steady themselves against everything that had led to this night. Afterward, the small crowd gathered in the foyer. Most were strangers, a few were friends, but every handshake, every smile, felt earned. Marcy Caldwell was there too, scribbling notes in her worn leather pad. This was better than any headline. She told Nathan, This was a whole book. He smiled. Maybe one day. Ava tugged on Elena's hand. Can we go home now? Elena looked at her. Did you like the song? I didn't just like it. I knew it. She turned to Olivia. Your violin is like Mama's voice. Olivia beamed. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Jonah fussed in the crib until Elena came in and hummed the same lullaby. He calmed instantly. Ava was curled on the couch with Olivia, coloring. Nathan stood at the window, looking out over the city lights. Elena joined him quietly. You okay? He nodded. That was beautiful. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't supposed to be. She leaned against him. Do you think people like us get happy endings? He thought about it. I think people like us don't need endings. Just beginnings that keep going. She smiled. That sounds like a song title. Maybe your next one. Ava came running in, barefoot. Jonah needs more lullaby, she declared. Elena laughed. We'll make it a family performance next time. Olivia followed behind. I'm already arranging a trio. Elena raised an eyebrow. With what instrument? Nathan shrugged. I could learn the triangle. Everyone laughed. And in that moment, surrounded by music and children and the warm chaos of people who had once been strangers, something became clear. They had created something stronger than survival. They had built a life, not perfect, but real. And in the corner of the room, the piano waited quietly. It didn't need to be played. Not tonight. It had already told the story, and everyone had listened. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with lullabies, with a child's small hand wrapped in yours, with a second chance whispered between piano notes, and with the quiet courage of saying, this time, I'm staying. Nathan, Elena, Ava, Jonah, and Olivia, each of them was broken by silence, but rebuilt through love. They didn't need perfection. They needed truth. And what they gave us was a powerful reminder. Family isn't always blood. Healing isn't always public. And not every scar needs to be hidden. But above all, this story asks us something deeper. What would our world look like if we judged less and listened more? If this story moved you, made you cry, made you hope, or simply made you believe in second chances, then please, like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that speak to the soul. We'll be back with more real emotion, more quiet heroes, and more reasons to believe that love, no matter how lost, can always find its way home. Until next time.